The space station floated quietly above the old planet. Everything around it was dark and still. Most people had left this area of space many years ago. Now only empty ships and broken satellites moved slowly through the black sky. Inside the station, a young engineer named Mira sat alone in the control room. Her hair was tied back, and her eyes were tired from working all night. She was trying to fix a broken satellite signal. The signal had been lost weeks ago, and her job was to bring it back. She pressed buttons, watched blinking lights, and listened to static sounds in her headphones. Then something strange happened. A new sound appeared in the background. It was not normal. It was soft, almost like a whisper, but it was repeating the same message again and again. Mira stopped everything. She turned up the volume and listened carefully. "Help, if you hear this. Wake the Titan." She froze. "Help, if you hear this. Wake the Titan." The voice sounded old, like it was recorded a long time ago. The signal was weak and broken, but the words were clear. Mira's heart began to beat faster. She opened an old computer file and checked the signal's location. It was coming from a planet that was once used as a military base during the last Great War. That war had ended more than 100 years ago. No one lived there anymore. She checked the name of the base. It was marked as closed and forgotten. Mira sat back in her chair. She had heard stories about this place. Long ago, when humanity was losing a war, they built something powerful, something huge, a machine so strong that it could change the path of a whole battle. People called it the Titan. But the Titan had not been seen in over 100 years. No one knew where it went or what happened to it. Some people said it was destroyed. Others said it was sleeping under the ground, waiting for the right moment to return. Mira looked back at the signal. "Help, if you hear this. Wake the Titan." She didn't know who sent it, or how old it was, but she felt something deep inside. Something told her this message was real, and something told her that the world was in danger again. She opened a secure channel and sent a copy of the message to Earth. Then she waited. No one answered. After an hour, she tried again. Still nothing. Finally, she decided to act on her own. She went to the ship dock and climbed into a small scout ship. The ship was old but still worked. She entered the location of the signal and started the engine. As the ship left the station, Mira looked at the planet on the screen. It was covered in clouds and dust. The surface looked dead, like nothing had moved there for years. The trip was quiet. She thought about the message over and over again. Who sent it? Was the Titan really down there? Could it still work? When she arrived near the planet, she guided her ship to a landing spot. The wind outside was strong, and dust blew across the ground. She wore her suit and stepped out of the ship. The place was silent. The buildings were broken. Metal parts were rusted. Everything looked forgotten. But the signal was stronger now. She followed it through the ruins until she found a small control room. The door was half open, and inside old lights blinked on and off. In the center of the room was a console with a glowing screen. On the screen, one line blinked. "Press to wake Titan." Mira took a deep breath. Was this real? She looked around. The place was empty. There was no one to ask, no one to stop her. She reached out and pressed the button. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the ground shook a little. Far away, a large door in the mountain began to open slowly. Dust flew into the air. A low hum filled the air, like something was coming to life. Mira ran outside and looked up. Lights inside the mountain turned on, one by one. She could hear machines moving deep below. And then she saw it. A giant shape stepped forward from the dark. It was tall, taller than any building she had seen. Its eyes glowed with soft blue light. It moved slowly, carefully, as if waking from a very long sleep. It was the Titan, and it was awake. Mira stood still, eyes wide, not sure if she should feel hope or fear. The Titan looked at the sky, then looked down at the world below. Something had begun, and it would not stop. The air was quiet around the mountain. Dust moved slowly through the wind, and the sky stayed gray above the silent planet. Mira stood on the rough ground, her eyes fixed on the tall figure standing in front of the old base. She could hardly breathe. The Titan was real. It had returned. The large machine didn't move at first. It stood like a statue, strong and still. Its body was made of smooth, dark metal, and its arms looked like they could hold the weight of a mountain. Its glowing eyes watched the world without emotion, like it was thinking, remembering. Mira slowly stepped forward. She kept her voice low and calm. "Can you hear me?" she asked, unsure if it could understand. The Titan did not reply. Mira tried again. "You were called. A signal was sent. Do you remember why you're here?" The wind blew through the ruins. Only silence answered her. Then, without warning, the Titan turned its head, not fast or sudden. Slow, smooth, like it was waking up from a very long sleep. Its glowing eyes looked directly at her. For a moment, she felt very small. It raised one arm and pointed toward the sky. Mira looked up. Far above, where the clouds were thin, small lights were moving across the stars. Ships. Many of them. Too many. They were coming. The Titan lowered its arm. It took one careful step forward. The ground shook gently beneath its foot, not enough to hurt anything, but enough to show its great weight. Inside its chest, lights flickered. Machines powered up. Old systems checked themselves. It was preparing. Not for war, Mira hoped, but for something else, something important. She followed it as best she could. The Titan walked slowly, but each step carried it far. It moved with purpose, as if it already knew what to do. Mira contacted her ship and asked it to follow. The scout drone hovered quietly in the sky, recording everything. The Titan stopped at the edge of a wide field. Here, the ground opened up. A hidden platform rose from the earth, dust sliding off its sides. It looked like a landing pad. No, a place where something used to rise and fall from the sky. The Titan stood in the center. From its back, soft energy lights began to glow. The old metal on its shoulders shifted and reshaped, revealing long wings that folded out like sails catching wind. Not real wings, something different. Something made for space. Mira gasped. "It's not just made for the ground," she whispered. "It can leave the planet." The Titan looked once more at her, as if to say goodbye. Then, without sound, it began to lift into the sky. Its feet rose from the ground. Dust swirled below. The light around it grew brighter, softer, like the sun rising. It climbed higher and higher until it disappeared into the clouds above. Mira stood there, unsure what she had just witnessed. She felt amazed, confused, maybe even a little sad. The Titan had come back, but not for her. Not for anyone on that planet. It had a greater reason. Something far beyond her. She returned to her ship and played back the recording of the moment. The signal, the awakening, the look in its eyes, the way it had pointed to the sky, the incoming ships, the quiet understanding that something big was happening. When she connected to Earth's communication system again, she sent everything. The signal, the location, the video. She told them, in the clearest words she could, that the Titan had returned. At first, no one believed her. But then, other stations started hearing the same signal. Not the old one, a new one. A steady hum coming from space, almost like a message, repeating again and again. A soft voice in the static. "I have returned." People across Earth began to listen. Scientists, historians, engineers. They remembered the old stories. They opened old files. They spoke names that had not been spoken in a century. One by one, eyes turned to the sky. Mira sat quietly in her ship, watching the stars. She didn't know what the Titan would do next. She didn't know what those ships were that moved like shadows above the world. But she did know one thing. The Titan was not asleep anymore. And something had changed in the silence of space. The day was growing late, and the quiet of the planet seemed to stretch on forever. Mira's ship drifted silently through space, and she couldn't help but feel a strange weight pressing down on her chest. Her mind raced, filled with questions, doubts, and a deep sense of awe. What was the Titan doing? Why had it awakened? And who, or what, was out there, watching from the distant stars? The Titan had risen into the sky, its giant form cutting through the clouds, a moving shadow against the setting sun. It was no longer a forgotten relic of the past. It was something alive, something aware. Mira had seen it with her own eyes. Its powerful wings, the energy that surrounded it, the calm, determined way it moved. The Titan was not just a machine. It had purpose. She glanced at the display on her ship. The incoming ships from space were still there, moving steadily closer. The signal from the Titan had disappeared into the unknown. And yet, Mira had a feeling deep inside her that told her the Titan had not left for no reason. It was waiting, watching, preparing for something big. Her comms beeped, pulling her back from her thoughts. It was a message from Earth. She quickly opened the channel, and the face of a tired officer appeared on the screen. "Mira, we've received your report. The signal. It's real. But the Titan's location is out of reach. We need more time to process all this." Mira nodded, her hands tightening on the controls. She could hear the officer's voice, but all she could think about were those distant ships. Now closer than ever, the Titan was gone, and she was left alone, stuck between two worlds, the world of the past and the world of an unknown future. "Mira." The officer's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Do you understand what this means? The Titan's return, it could change everything. But right now, it's not clear whether it's a sign of hope or something much more dangerous." Mira's grip on the controls tightened. She didn't need anyone to tell her that. She had seen the Titan move, and it had felt like it was making a choice she didn't understand yet. "I understand," she replied quietly, her voice steady despite the rush of emotions inside her. "I'll keep monitoring, and I'll send whatever information I can." With that, she ended the transmission. Mira stared at the screen in front of her. The enemy ships were much closer now, just beyond the edges of the atmosphere. She knew they weren't just passing through. They were here for a reason. The sky seemed to grow darker as she turned her ship toward the distant horizon. She could feel the tension in the air, like a storm was about to break. She didn't know what these ships were, but she knew they were not here for peace. The people on Earth weren't ready for what was coming. And now, the Titan was gone. It had disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving Mira to figure out what to do next. As the hours passed, Mira stayed in constant contact with Earth, providing updates and relaying any new information she could gather. But each passing minute only deepened the mystery. What had the Titan done? Where had it gone? And what about the ships that were now getting closer by the minute? They were not like anything Earth had seen before. Their designs were sleek and unfamiliar, unlike anything from human technology. There was no way to know for sure, but Mira had a feeling that the Titan wasn't just protecting Earth. It was preparing for something more. Perhaps the Titan had been waiting all this time, waiting for the right moment to return. And perhaps that moment was now. By the time the ships entered Earth's atmosphere, Mira could see the flashing lights in the distance. Her heart pounded in her chest. The enemy was here. The sky above Earth was now alive with movement, and the ground below was in a state of chaos as the unknown ships drew closer. She quickly ran a scan of the incoming fleet. There were hundreds of ships, each one larger than any human-made vessel. But they weren't attacking. Not yet. Instead, they hovered above the planet, as if observing, waiting. The strange ships moved with incredible precision, and their glowing engines lit up the night sky. Mira knew that they weren't like anything Earth had ever seen before. The ships seemed to communicate in a way she couldn't understand, a strange pattern of flashing lights and pulsing signals. Then the transmission came through. A voice, deep and calm, echoed through her ship's comm system. "Humanity, we have watched. We have waited. Now you will answer for your past. Prepare to face the consequences." Mira's heart skipped a beat. The message was clear. Whoever these beings were, they had been waiting a long time. Waiting for humanity to make a move. Waiting for the moment when the Titan would return. And now, the moment had come. She quickly sent an encrypted message back to Earth, hoping that they were prepared for what was about to happen. But deep down, she knew that nothing could prepare them for the truth. The Titan might have been humanity's last hope, but it had disappeared, and the ships above Earth were not here for peace. Mira felt the weight of the moment press down on her. The world she had known, the Earth she had tried to protect, was now on the edge of something unimaginable. And there was no way to stop what was coming. The night sky over Earth seemed to hum with energy. The ships above continued to hover in their perfect formation, their lights flickering like distant stars. Mira watched from her ship as the strange vessels filled the atmosphere, their presence overwhelming, their purpose still unclear. The message they had sent echoed in her mind. Prepare to face the consequences. It was a warning, a promise of something that was yet to come. Back on Earth, the government had scrambled to respond. Military units were on high alert, and scientists were working overtime to decode any transmissions from the unknown ships. But Mira knew that all their preparation might be in vain. The truth was, no one knew what these ships were capable of. She had seen their design, and it was unlike anything humanity had ever created. These beings were not like the enemies from the past. They weren't simply invaders. They were something more. Her ship floated in space, close enough to Earth's atmosphere to monitor any changes. The silent hum of the engines was the only sound that filled the cabin. Mira leaned forward, her fingers tracing over the screen in front of her, scanning for any signs of movement. The incoming ships remained in place, almost like they were waiting for something to happen. As hours passed, a strange stillness hung in the air. There was no communication from Earth, no new information. Mira's unease grew with each passing moment. She couldn't help but wonder if anyone on the planet truly understood the gravity of the situation. What if these ships had been watching Earth for far longer than anyone knew? What if they had been waiting for this exact moment to make their move? A soft beep broke her thoughts. She quickly turned to the control panel. A new signal had appeared. This one was different from the others. It was a transmission, but it wasn't from the ships. It wasn't from Earth either. The message came in the form of a series of beeps, sharp and rhythmic, almost like a code. Mira decoded it quickly, her heart racing as the message unfolded. "We have waited long enough. You will remember what you have forgotten." Mira's mind raced. Remember what? What had humanity forgotten that could be so important? She had heard rumors, whispers among scientists and historians about ancient technologies, lost civilizations, and a time before the Great War. But none of it made sense. Was this what they were speaking of? Had these beings witnessed humanity's past, and now they had returned to remind them of something buried deep in history? The feeling of being watched intensified. It was as if the ships in the sky were listening, waiting for Mira to uncover the truth. She felt a strange connection to them. Something inexplicable, like they were waiting for a response. She had to act. She couldn't just sit by and wait for the unknown to reveal itself. With a deep breath, Mira made a decision. She sent a message back to the strange fleet, something simple but direct. "What do you want from us?" For a long moment, there was no reply. Mira's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the screen, hoping for some kind of answer. And then, just as she was about to give up, a new transmission came through. This time, it wasn't just a message. It was a series of images flickering across her screen. Ancient cities, long-abandoned ruins, broken monuments, and strange artifacts. The images showed a world that Mira had never seen before, one that looked like it existed in a time long before humanity's rise. The final image made her gasp. It was of the Titan, this time standing in the middle of a great battle, its massive form towering over soldiers and machines. It was a symbol of power, of something humanity had once controlled but had long since forgotten. The transmission ended, leaving Mira speechless. The ships above Earth had shown her a part of history that no one had ever known. The Titan was not just a weapon. It was a key, a reminder of a past civilization that had built something far more advanced than anything humanity had ever dreamed of. And somehow, these beings had been watching, waiting for the right moment to bring this forgotten history back into the light. Mira felt a strange sense of urgency. The more she thought about the images, the more she realized that humanity's past held the answers to the questions she had been asking. The Titan had been part of something much larger, something that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Earth. But why had it been hidden away? Why had it been forgotten for so long? She contacted Earth once again, hoping that the images she had received would provide some answers. The response came quickly, but it was not what she expected. The voice on the other end was calm but filled with worry. "Mira, we've been decoding the transmissions. We found something disturbing. The ships above Earth, these aren't the first time they've appeared. There are records, ancient records, that suggest they came long before humanity ever reached the stars. We've uncovered stories of these beings, and they were not friendly. They left behind ruins, broken cities, and artifacts that humanity has never been able to understand." Mira's heart sank. The Titan was not the only thing from humanity's past that had been forgotten. There was something darker, something that these beings were waiting to reveal. And whatever it wasn't going to stay buried much longer. As the ships above Earth began to shift positions, Mira knew that the world was on the brink of something monumental. The past was coming to light, and there was no going back. The Titan had returned, but now, it was clear, its return was only the beginning. The next morning, Earth's atmosphere felt different. The usual noise and bustle of daily life had been replaced by a quiet tension that seemed to hang in the air, thick and heavy. Mira sat in the cockpit of her ship, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The ships above Earth remained as silent and still as ever, but something about them felt like they were waiting, biding their time. The unknown was drawing closer, and no one on Earth could quite grasp what was happening. Mira's mind raced. The transmission she had received from the strange fleet had shown her something important. The Titan was more than just a machine. It was part of something bigger, something ancient. But what? What had humanity forgotten? And why was it so important to these beings that they had returned now? The mysterious fleet had not moved since their arrival. It was as if they were waiting for something, or perhaps for someone. The question echoed in Mira's mind, one that seemed to grow louder with every passing second. What were they waiting for? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft beep from her control panel. It was an incoming message. She quickly opened the communication channel, and the face of an old scientist appeared on the screen. His name was Dr. Janos, the leading expert on ancient technology. His face was pale, his eyes filled with concern. "Mira, we've discovered something," he began, his voice shaky. "Something that might explain all of this." Mira sat up straight, her heart racing. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when someone would finally piece together the puzzle. Dr. Janos continued, "There are records, hidden in ancient archives, that speak of the Titan. And these beings, they're called the Watchers, and they were the ones who created the Titan. It wasn't a weapon at first, it was a guardian, a protector. But something happened. The Watchers disappeared, and humanity forgot." Mira blinked in disbelief. Guardians? Protectors? The Titan was not a weapon. She had always thought of it as a machine of war, a symbol of power. But what Dr. Janos was saying changed everything. The Titan was designed to protect humanity from an enemy far greater than anything we've ever seen, Dr. Janos continued. But the Watchers built it, and then they left. They left us with the Titan, and we forgot why it existed in the first place. Mira leaned forward, her mind racing to understand what this meant. But why? Why didn't they leave a message? Why didn't they warn us? Dr. Janos looked away, as if the weight of his own thoughts was too much to bear. We don't know. What we do know is that the Watchers left something behind. The signal. A message hidden in the Titan itself. A message that would only activate when the time was right. Mira felt a chill run down her spine. The Titan was a message. The Watchers' technology is advanced, more advanced than anything humanity has ever created. And when they left, they hid the message within the Titan, knowing that one day someone would uncover it. But the question is, are we ready for the truth? Mira felt the gravity of the situation settle over her. She had always believed that humanity was the dominant force in the universe, but now she wasn't so sure. These Watchers, whoever they were, had left a trail for humanity to follow, and they had placed the burden of the truth upon her shoulders. Was humanity prepared for the secrets that the Titan held? Was Mira prepared? As if on cue, the ships above Earth began to move. Slowly at first, their lights flickering as if they were responding to something, like they were waiting for a signal. Mira watched as they aligned in a perfect circle, their movements deliberate, synchronized. They were getting ready to do something. The tension in the air grew. Mira had to act. She couldn't wait any longer. She turned to her controls and initiated a communication to Earth, hoping someone would be ready for the next step. Dr. Janos, we need to figure out what that message is, Mira said. Now, before they move any closer. If these Watchers have been waiting for something, then we need to be ready to answer. Dr. Janos' face tightened with determination. I agree. I'll get our team working on deciphering the Titan systems. But Mira, be careful. We don't know what kind of power the Titan holds. It's not just a machine. It's something more. Something alive. Mira nodded, her thoughts heavy with the weight of responsibility. She couldn't do this alone. She needed to understand what the Titan really was and what the Watchers wanted from humanity. She knew one thing for sure. The truth was out there, hidden beneath layers of time, waiting for someone to uncover it. With one final glance at the ships in the sky, Mira set a course for the Titan's last known location. As she moved closer to the mountain range where the Titan had first awakened, a sense of urgency filled her. She had to find answers. The world depended on it. As her ship entered the atmosphere, the ground beneath her began to shake, not violently, but with a force that was unmistakable. Mira felt the vibration deep within her bones, a reminder that whatever was happening was far beyond anything she could control. She pushed forward, determined to find the truth, but a nagging feeling at the back of her mind wouldn't let her go. The Watchers weren't just visitors. They were part of Earth's forgotten history, a piece of the puzzle that had been hidden for far too long. And now, they were back to remind humanity of what it had lost. But were they friends, or were they something far darker? As Mira's ship landed on the rocky ground, she knew one thing with certainty. The next few hours would change everything. The ground beneath Mira's feet trembled as her ship's engines powered down. The landscape stretched out before her, barren, quiet, and seemingly abandoned. The area was once a bustling research facility, now overgrown and left to nature's reclaiming touch. But Mira wasn't here for history or ruins. She was here to uncover the truth about the Titan. Stepping out of the ship, Mira was immediately struck by the silence. There were no birds, no animals. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The distant mountains loomed like silent sentinels, watching her every move. She adjusted the collar of her jacket, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that wrapped itself around her. This place felt wrong, as though something was hidden in the very air, something waiting for her to discover. She glanced at the map of the area on her wrist device. The Titan was supposed to be just beyond the next ridge. The device's readings confirmed it. She wasn't far from where the last recorded sighting of the Titan had been made. But something about this place was unsettling. It felt as though the Earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something, or perhaps someone. Mira began walking, each step measured, but her mind was anything but calm. The information Dr. Janos had uncovered weighed heavily on her. The Titan wasn't just a weapon. It wasn't even just a machine. It was a protector, an artifact of a past that humanity had forgotten. Her mind kept returning to the ancient message. We have waited long enough. You will remember what you have forgotten. But what was it that had been forgotten? What had humanity done so wrong that the Titan was now waking? As she moved forward, her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden change in the air. A faint hum. At first, it was barely noticeable, like the soft buzzing of an electrical current running through the ground. But the sound grew louder, more distinct. Mira stopped, her hand instinctively reaching for her communicator. A blip on her device caught her attention. Something was nearby. Something moving. The scan didn't indicate any life forms, but the hum was unmistakable. She wasn't alone. The source of the sound was a structure ahead of her, half buried beneath the earth. A massive underground complex, hidden from view, but its presence made itself known through the vibrations she felt deep in her bones. Her heart raced. Could this be the facility where the Titan had been created, where the Watchers had left their mark? Without hesitation, Mira made her way toward the structure. She passed through the overgrown foliage and into the open, where a large metal door stood in front of her. It was rusted, old, yet strangely familiar. The design was unlike anything she had ever seen. Smooth curves and strange symbols etched into the metal surface. A language, perhaps, that had once been understood by those who created it. Her fingers traced the symbols, and as she did, the door groaned. Slowly, it began to open, revealing the darkness beyond. Mira stepped inside, the smell of dust and decay filling her lungs. The space was vast, with high ceilings and long empty corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The dim light from her flashlight barely cut through the gloom, casting eerie shadows against the walls. The humming sound grew louder as she moved deeper into the complex. Each step brought her closer to whatever secret lay hidden here. She didn't know what she was expecting to find, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was getting closer to an answer. A loud click echoed through the hall, and then the floor beneath her shifted. A hidden door opened with a loud thud, revealing a massive chamber at the center of the facility. Inside, a figure stood at the center of the room. It was the Titan, or at least part of it. The massive form of the machine towered above Mira, its body partially buried in a complex web of cables and machinery. The Titan's outer shell was cracked, showing signs of age, but there was something about it that was undeniably powerful. The way the structure seemed to pulse with life, as if it was waiting for something. Mira's heart beat faster. She approached slowly, her hand reaching out, but before she could touch the Titan's surface, a voice echoed around the chamber. "You have arrived." The voice was calm, almost soothing, yet it carried an undeniable authority. Mira froze, looking around but saw no one. The voice wasn't coming from a person, it was coming from the Titan itself. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts to remain steady. "We are the Watchers," the voice responded, resonating from the very walls around her. "We created the Titan, and we have watched over your species for millennia. You have forgotten much, but it is time to remember." Mira stepped back, her mind racing. The Watchers had created the Titan, but why had they left? And why were they only returning now? The Titan's massive frame seemed to shift slightly, as if it were waking from a deep slumber. Mira watched as the machine's eyes, if they could even be called eyes, flickered to life. A soft blue glow illuminated the darkness, casting a faint light on the walls around her. The Titan was never meant to be a weapon, the voice continued, filling the room with its steady, omnipresent tone. It was a protector, a guardian. Your species once shared the stars with us. but you forgot. You turned your backs on the knowledge we gave you, and now you are on the brink of repeating the mistakes of your ancestors. Mira's mind spun as the weight of the words sank in. Humanity had once shared the stars with these beings. The Titan wasn't a weapon. It was a warning. But why had they allowed humanity to forget? Why hadn't they intervened earlier? The Titan's voice grew quieter. The choice is yours. The past is written in the stars, but the future is still unwritten. Will you remember, or will you continue on the path of destruction? Mira stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The weight of the decision before her was overwhelming. Could humanity really change? Could they learn from the past and make things right, or was the future already doomed? As she looked at the Titan, something deep within her stirred. She knew the answer. Humanity had the chance to change, to rewrite the future. But it would take more than just remembering. It would take action. She stepped forward, her fingers brushing against the cold surface of the Titan. The machine's energy hummed softly beneath her touch. It was ready. But was she? Mira stood there, her fingers lightly resting on the surface of the Titan, feeling the hum of energy beneath her skin. The air around her seemed to vibrate with anticipation, as if the very atmosphere was waiting for something. The Titan had spoken, and now the weight of the decision was entirely hers. She could feel the gravity of it pressing down on her chest. Everything that had led her to this moment. The SOS, the mysterious fleet, the Watcher's return, had brought her to this point in time. She glanced around the dark chamber, her mind racing. The words of the Titan echoed in her ears. Will you remember, or will you continue on the path of destruction? The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and Mira could feel the immense responsibility of the decision she was about to make. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every human being on Earth. About the future. About everything. But what was the right choice? Could humanity really change? Or were they doomed to repeat the same mistakes they had made in the past? Mira knew that the truth had been hidden from humanity for too long, buried in the ancient archives, locked away in forgotten memories. But now the time had come to open those doors, to look at the truth for what it really was. She looked up at the Titan, its form still towering above her, its eyes glowing softly in the dim light. The hum of energy seemed to grow louder, more insistent, and Mira knew that whatever decision she made would change the course of history. A sudden flash of light filled the room, blinding her for a moment. When it faded, Mira found herself standing in a different place entirely. The chamber was gone, replaced by a vast, empty void. The stars around her twinkled brightly in the darkness, and in the distance she could make out a massive structure, far beyond anything she had ever seen. It was the Titan, but in a form that was so much larger, more majestic. It floated in space, surrounded by a fleet of ships, the Watcher's fleet. She felt a presence beside her, and when she turned, she saw a figure standing there, a being that was not quite human, yet not entirely alien. The figure's eyes were like two bright stars, glowing with ancient wisdom. Mira recognized it immediately. It was one of the Watchers. "You have come to understand," the Watcher said, its voice soft but filled with the weight of ages. "Humanity has forgotten its place in the cosmos, but it is not too late to remember." Mira felt a wave of emotions rush over her. Fear, awe, curiosity. She had so many questions, but one stood out above all the rest. "Why now? Why are you showing me this?" The Watcher's gaze softened. "Because the time has come for you to choose. The Titan is more than just a machine. It is a key to unlocking humanity's potential. But it is not enough to simply remember. You must act. You must take what we have given you and use it to create something new, something better." Mira's mind raced. She understood now. The Titan wasn't a weapon. It was a tool, a guide, a way for humanity to rise above its limitations. But it required them to do more than just fight wars or build machines. It required them to learn, to grow, to seek wisdom. The Watchers had watched humanity for centuries, waiting for the right moment. And now that moment had arrived. Humanity has the power to shape its own future, the Watcher continued. But the path is not easy. You will face challenges, temptations, and doubts. There will be those who seek to use the Titan for their own purposes, to wield its power for destruction. But you must resist. The Titan will show you the way, but only if you are ready to listen. Mira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders. She could see it now, the potential for something greater. Humanity could rise from the ashes of its past mistakes and build a future worthy of the stars. But it wouldn't be easy. There would be sacrifices, there would be struggles, and there would be those who would try to stop them. I understand, Mira said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts inside her mind. But what if we fail? What if we can't change? The Watcher's expression was unreadable, but there was a hint of something like hope in its eyes. Failure is not the end. It is a lesson, a chance to learn and grow. The path to redemption is never straight, but it is worth walking, for in the end, you will find the strength you need to succeed. With those words, the Watcher turned and began to walk toward the Titan. Mira followed, her heart heavy with determination. She had made her choice. Humanity would rise, or it would fall, but it would not be because they gave up. It would be because they chose to fight, to remember, and to grow. As they approached the Titan, Mira could feel its energy surging around her, the power of the ancient machine pulsing like a heartbeat. The Watcher stopped in front of the Titan, its gaze turning toward Mira. "Now you must awaken it," the Watcher said. "You are the key, Mira. Only you can unlock the Titan's true potential. Only you can guide humanity to its future." Mira stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch the Titan once more. As her fingers brushed against its surface, a flood of memories rushed through her, visions of ancient civilizations, of battles fought long ago, of the Watchers and their role in shaping the universe. The Titan's power surged within her, and in that moment, Mira understood everything. She understood the truth about the Watchers, the Titan, and the future of humanity. With a deep breath, she activated the Titan's systems. The ground shook beneath her as the Titan's colossal form began to come to life, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The ships above Earth began to move, their engines powering up, ready to fulfill their purpose. Humanity's last war had come, but it was not a war of destruction. It was a war for redemption, a war to reclaim what had been lost, and to prove that humanity could rise above its past mistakes. The future was not set in stone. It was theirs to shape. Mira turned away from the Titan, her heart filled with hope. The Watchers had shown her the way. Now it was up to humanity to follow it. And as the Titan rose into the sky, Mira knew that the world would never be the same again.